Welcome to another episode of The Swish Show, where, as always, I'm your host, Ryan Tuckwood, and today I'm excited to bring you someone that is firstly an experienced external board advisor and leadership team facilitator to high-growth, small and medium-sized companies with over 30 years experience in the financial and strategic space. She is passionate, extremely passionate about supporting Australian entrepreneurs to succeed both domestically and internationally, and has collaborated on multiple occasions with Swish's very own Dr. Glenn Richards and Scaling Up's Vern Harnish, where they co-present at Australian Scaling Up Summits and Masterclasses. She is the only female certified Rockefeller Habits and Scaling Up coach in Australasia, and in 2018 was awarded the prestigious Best New International Scaling Up Coach of the Year award at the Scaling Up Coaches Summit. Anna Samios, welcome. How are you?
Good, I'm really well. Good to catch up. Yeah, all good.
I know. I feel like we only spoke recently at the summit, at the Swish Summit that we held, the Sales and Business Summit, and the feedback on you, on the quick little keynote that we had from you for 45 minutes or so was unbelievable. That we had to kind of get you back in to share some more nuggets of gold to not only our listeners but also our existing clients as well. So thank you for giving up your time. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. It's kind of you to say that. Good. It resonated, which is important. That's great.
It really did, and I think it was timely with the way that the world is right now, and there's a lot of businesses out there that are doing it tough, businesses and individuals that are doing it tough. So I'm going to come back to that shortly without getting too caught up on the COVID thing, because we want to leave that behind now at the end of 2020. But firstly, I've just given you your corporate introduction, as I like to call it. For those people that maybe haven't heard of you before or seen your work before, give us a quick overview in your words of Anna and a little bit about you and your background.
Okay, so I guess I started off in stockbroking, where I went into as a script clerk and went through uni, did my economics and finance degree, and then got a job working in financial and performance analysis with AMP Investments. So at that time, I spent about 5 or 6 years taking a helicopter view of very large organizations. So I've cut my teeth really in corporate governance, strategy, but also in performance analysis. So really understanding how the numbers move in a business. At the ripe old age of 25, had the entrepreneurial seizure and went into business with my husband. We set up our own chartered accounting firm, and which we exited a couple of years ago after 25 years. But those first 3-4 years were really hard. My logic was, when I had the entrepreneurial seizure, when we both decided to go into business for ourselves, was, we're working so many hours in the corporate world. Surely if we work all those hours for ourselves, more hours equals more money. And of course, nothing could have been further from the truth. Like, sometimes you're just really, really busy, but doesn't actually mean that you've got a higher return for your effort. So the first 3 years were actually quite tough. We did turn a profit and we were good, but when I looked at the profit and loss, I was like, hold on, this doesn't make sense. I've just been working, 7 days a week, 14, 16-hour days. This, something's got to change.
Yeah.
What is it? I'm not the first person to have run a business or to created a business. What can I go out and learn from other people to improve our business? And then, lo and behold, we started implementing a lot of really great stuff. And fast forward, like I still always stayed within my strategic space and my coaching space, on and off between kids. And then just recently, probably about 5 years ago, Glenn Richards and myself have always had this beautiful mentor, Andrew Geddes, who was actually Glenn's chairman of Green Cross when they were publicly listed. And like good mentors do, they pick up the phone and they say, what are you up to? What are you doing? And I kind of say, well, look, life's really good. The business is great. The kids are growing up. It's all good. And he goes, that's really good. Now get on with it. And he hung up on me. He just said, get on with it. Bang, went the phone. And I went, what does he mean by get on with it? But I think he was really kind of pushing me to go, okay, let's go again. You've accomplished what you've accomplished. Now it's time to push yourself to the next level. And I think live a bit of your truth as well. So I was in the family business, supporting the family business, but I knew I wanted to do a lot more in this entrepreneurial space and start sharing what I had learnt over the years with people. So that people don't go through what I went through, what we went through in those first 3 years. It doesn't have to happen. There are lessons that we can learn from others, and it's all about implementing it and living our dreams, really, without, taking a massive toll on our families and the people around us as well.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to delve into a little bit there, Anna, if we may. So you said the first 3 or 4 years were tough, which I think most new business owners will definitely be able to relate to. It was been well publicized. Jack and I speak about this a lot. The first 2 years we didn't pay ourselves, and we're working the same 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and it sometimes gets to the stage where you go, when do I get mine? For people that are starting out in business right now, or maybe they're in the midst of it, but they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, what were those things that you went through? Was there anything specific that you could put your finger on that went, okay, this was happening, but it didn't need to? And can they accelerate their way past those small challenges?
I think you've got to be really, really clear on who you want to serve and who you want to help, who your core customers are, and who's really important for you. I think the thing that, because as you know, I work with a lot of high growth companies that are scaling. And like I've worked with, CSIRO alumni bring me in to help a lot of their researchers commercialize their IP. So they're in a startup phase. And I worked through all the way to one organization that's got, we're pushing 1.2 billion and 600 staff. So, but the principles still apply in that when you're scaling or when you're growing, and when you're trying to find a good product market fit, it's really important that you don't say yes to everything and to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think the first few years in business, because we're looking for revenue and we're looking for, what might be our fit in the marketplace, sometimes we stretch ourselves too thin because we can't say the word no.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're saying no. I think for some people, there's a little bit of fear that if they say no, they've kind of lost that opportunity and that opportunity's come their way. But reality is, and my experience has been over the last few decades, that if you're very, very clear on who you're right for in your business, like who you're there to help, and you have a good product market fit, it's important you don't clutter your whole schedule with people who aren't the right product market fit for you. And I'm a real believer that the minute you start saying no, the universe will start sending you the right people for you to help, because they exist. The planet's massive. When I started business, I had to be in the office at 9 o'clock because if I wasn't, well, the phone didn't get answered at 9. Like there was no internet, there was no call forwarding, there was nothing.
Yeah.
And the world's completely changed now. That the size of our marketplace, the total addressable market now has gone completely global for us.
Yeah.
And I think those kind of massive structural changes in what we're doing and who we're helping have really kind of assisted us to take courage in saying no to things who may not, people who may not be right fit, and being true to yourself and getting out there and just helping the people that you really are there to help.
Yeah, it's a hard lesson, right? That really speaks to me. When we first started out, we were recruitment, we were motivation, we were goal setters, sales trainers, negotiation, we're a little bit of everything. We got, after Shark Tank, it was in 2018, we then changed the business to become solely sales trainers, and people were saying, you do sales training. And it broke my heart that we'd been doing it at that stage for over 3 years. And I'm like, you had no idea what we do as a business. And that's because we didn't have that identity. So what about then with the saying no? Because we need cash flow, right? We need money to keep the doors open in the first place. There's got to be a little bit of a chasm there where you go, okay, well, we still need to make a sale. We still need revenue coming in. Like, where do you draw the line? Because otherwise we can't continue, right?
Really good point. And this is where one of the things, and like we run it at the last summit together, I talked to a lot of the people who attended the Swish Summit. You really need to have a good cash flow forecast. You really have to know your numbers at least for 3 months, if not more.
Yeah.
The black and white clarity of an Excel spreadsheet telling you what's happening in your business is far more important than any P&L or balance sheet or BAS statement that any accountant can produce.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, for me, I think that's the biggest weakness that businesses have, in that they rely on data produced by their accountants, and which is looking into the past. It's retrospective, and it doesn't feed us to make strategic decisions moving forward. But when you have a cash flow forecast, you can see your cash flow runway. And you would have heard me say it before, but cash doesn't lie. Every other number on that profit and loss on balance sheet is just an opinion in time.
Yeah.
But the cash flow and your cash flow forecast doesn't lie, and it gives you clarity and confidence as you're moving forward. And once you have a look in, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I think people think that they need to make these massive kind of three-way forecasts, and look, it's back of the envelope kind of calculations, to be brutally honest. You're making assumptions, but you are the owner, and you're running the business, so you're the one who's going to probably have the most information about what's going on than anybody else. If you just sit down with a real nice kind of cash flow forecast and try and estimate for the next 3 months, that will give you clarity in choosing when to say no, or what needs to be true, where you need to position the business in such a way that you have enough cash in your bank account to weather the storm of saying a few no's until you get those wins in. And reality is, look, if you do have the capacity, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're making money. And you need to be very, very be courageous in your decisions. If you are saying no, don't take them on just for the sake of filling in a void of time. They really have to be the right kind of fit for your business and have a good impact on your cash flow.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Let me just take you back for a second, because you referenced your entrepreneurial seizure, which is a nod to Michael E. Gerber and the EMyth, I'm assuming.
Yes.
A fantastic book if anybody hasn't read that or listened to it. So are you saying at that stage then you weren't always of the entrepreneurial nature? Was business in your family, or where did it all come from, do you think?
Yeah, good question. And remind me, I'll tell you a really great story about Michael E. Gerber. I met him live when I was starting out. So I've got to, that's a cracker of a story, but I'll get to that in a minute. I'm probably third or fourth generation of entrepreneurs in our family. So it is in our blood, it is in our DNA. My mum's, both her grandparents were very, very wealthy. They were from, one was a livestock trader, like a cattleman in Greece, and her other grandfather was a shipping merchant. And they were both very, very, well established. But then the wars hit. The First World War hit, the Second World War hit, the Great Depression hit, and they lost everything, both of them. So it was interesting because I remember my grandmother still kept like beautiful furniture, exquisite dresses and hats and gloves. But, given what had happened with wars and whatever, they lost everything. And I think, after that, mum's got 3 brothers and sisters. 3 of them are quite entrepreneurial. And I think I've kind of grown up seeing that, mum's sister is a really large distributor of makeup in Greece. She's retired now, but I kind of, every time we'd go to Greece, I'd spend times on Greyhound buses doing traveling, for road shows with her. And it was kind of just the thing I did. And I kind of always grew around that. So it is part of your DNA. It is from both sides of my family. My father also had a small business, as did my husband's family. They're 5th generation cafe owners from, country New South Wales. So it was just in our DNA. That was a kitchen table conversation all the time. It's about business and customers and the latest products and how to improve what we do.
Yeah, well, because I always find that interesting, of whether it is nature or nurture, the entrepreneurial angle, because I'm the opposite. I don't come from any sort of business background at all. So I always like to delve a bit deeper into that. But talk to me about Michael Eager then. Let's hear the story.
Finishing up on what you just said, though, interestingly, I think, and you probably would have heard me say this before, but I think there's people live two lives: the life they're living, but also the life inside of them that they know they're capable of. And it takes a lot of guts for you to choose. If you have this dream and you have this hunger that you want to give something a go, then it doesn't get any better than Australia, to be honest. We live in, we're just so blessed to live in this fantastic country and to have the opportunities we have and just give it a go. So if it's in you and you've taken courage and strength and gone for it, and I just, for people who kind of hold themselves back because they do the what ifs and the too much, they almost paralyze themselves in the problems as opposed to finding the solutions.
Actually, you've just triggered something in me there. So the just give it a go notion is very Australian, but at the same time there is also that little the devil at the back of our mind that says, well, no, don't take any risks, play safe. But then earlier on, you also referenced Glenn Richards said to you, get on with it and put the phone down, right? So in that respect, how important is it to have those people around you that then give you that nudge to counter that little thing at the back of your mind?
Look, it wasn't Glenn who said that. It was Glenn's chairman, our mentor. No, Andrew, our mentor. And you, very, very good point. I've been blessed that I've had really good men in the corporate world back me and see things in me that perhaps sometimes I didn't dare see myself. So I've had Andrew do that, and I've had Glenn Richards has backed me when we rolled out the masterclasses throughout Australia. And interestingly, when Vern and I were talking about running a summit, we ran the Scaling Up Summit, which sold out twice at the ICC. We sold out one room, and God love them, they gave me another room and we sold that one out again. But Vern also backed me. So Vern Harnish backed me, and quite clearly I remember at the time, there was a bit of, oh geez, do I really take this chance? And then he just looked at me and he said, it's quite simply, and he said to everyone in Australia, like, get out of her way, she's coming through, as in she's on a mission to help a lot of entrepreneurs, and she's going to have a massive multiplier effect. And he backed me, and having those people kind of put up their hand and support you, and back you, kind of just puts an extra wind in your sail, and off you go. So it is important that people see that. Equally, it's important for people like you and me to see that in others as well. And to pass that forward, pass it on. Because I think, you're right, but that's part of the reptilian brain that makes us second guess things. And the longer you think about something, the more convincing your argument is not to do the crazy thing. But I have to tell you, the minute when you're saying to yourself, this is a crazy idea, but I think it's got legs, you have to back yourself. At the end of the day, if you don't back yourself, no one else is going to believe in you either. So I guess for anyone listening here, if you're second guessing yourself or listening perhaps to other people's opinions about what you should be doing with your life, I kind of saying, just back yourself and go for it, and don't overthink it. Just have a go. The market will tell you before anybody else will whether you're right or wrong. And the market is the only one who really should decide.
100%.
Everybody else is just an opinion. But I have been lucky coming back. I have been lucky that good people have believed in me, and that just made it a lot easier for me too. And I'm very grateful for that. Very, very grateful.
I think there'd be a lot of businesses that wouldn't be in play right now if they'd have listened to their friends and family and the people that were around them.
You ask 50 opinions, you ask 50 people, you'll get 50,000 opinions. You really have to surround yourself with the right people who kind of have the same hunger, drive, and desire you have, and that their purpose, their why is aligned with you. That's a lot of Simon Sinek's work. And these good people do exist, And probably if you are being surrounded by naysayers or people who are very good at convincing you of not you living your best version of your life, you need to change that circle of people who are influencing your thought. And we're all out there. You're one of them, and so am I. Like, you know, we call ideas as we see them and give our opinion on things, but equally really want to find solutions for people's dreams as opposed to figuring out everything that could go wrong.
Yeah. The pessimist versus the optimist, right?
Oh, you know, there's plenty of them.
Yeah, that's the easy way. That's the lazy way. Yeah, it is.
Make me yawn. That's boring. Life's my dad's actually a gorgeous, really funny family. Humor, singing, dancing, all the rest of all the crazy Greek stuff.
They're Greek, yeah.
Yeah, Greek. And I remember, you know, once I was trying to, I had a real kind of, you know, fork in the road kind of moment, a real pivot point in my life. And I remember just talking to Dad forever and ever about what am I going to do, and option A and option B and blah, blah, blah. And he didn't speak. He listened to me, God, I'm for about an hour and a half. He didn't speak. And at the end, I just went, you know, what am I going to do? And he kind of looked at me and he said, life is for living, love. He goes, you know, fear nothing. I'm here. Just go for it.
Love that. Wow.
And you know, in a good Greek father saying, you know, life is for living.
Yeah, I can see
I just went, he's so right. Like, we're in Australia. What is there to fear? Life is for living. Just give yourself a chance. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, there's the title of this podcast episode.
Your dad will like that. I'll tell him. He'll be chuffed.
Yeah. We'll put him in quoted comments. Yeah, nice. I was going to say, bring us back to the Michael E. Gerber story then before I forget.
Yes, good point. So when I was trying to figure out what we're going to do with business and how we're going to fix it, I started reading a lot, and obviously the EMyth just, you know, struck me. I was lucky that it was kind of written around the time that we were starting in business, those formative years. And then he came out to Australia in Sydney live, and he ran a morning session and he ran an afternoon session. And the morning session was a full theatre. So it was probably back then, about 200 to 300 people, if not more. And I paid extra to sit for the second session. And the second session was probably a couple of $100 more, but there weren't many people. There were probably maybe 50, not even that, who attended that thing. And when he came out on stage after lunch, he came out with his saxophone. And he played the saxophone. For me, it felt like hours. I was just going, just tell me what I've got to do. Just tell me what I've got to do to fix this business. How do I turn this ship around? How do I make it all worthwhile? And he just played the saxophone. And at the very end, it might have been 20, 30 minutes. At the very end, he said, you realize that running a business is very similar to playing a musical instrument. It takes discipline, focus, and a lot of practice for you to be able to master this instrument as you master running a business. So in the days where things were going a bit, not wrong, but, you know, some days were harder than others. I'd see him still playing the saxophone. I can still see him now, where, you know, the lesson really is, you know, you're not going to get it right the first time. You're not even going to get it right on the 25th year.
Yeah.
You just always have to iterate. You always have to go again, learn your lessons and keep practicing. So that was a big lesson for me from Gerber.
That's amazing. I didn't even know he played the saxophone.
Oh, yes. Bit of jazz.
Yeah, what a man. There you go. He's just gone up another notch. Well, you might have just crossed over into what I wanted to discuss next, Anna, is that, of course, we can't dodge it, right? 2020 has been a crazy, crazy year for a lot of people. Unfortunately, many businesses have actually gone under. Maybe people were just starting out in businesses and it's been derailed before they even got a chance to get going. So talk to me quickly about adversity and the struggles that you've been through. And I'm sure 25 years in business, there's been many. How do you cope with them? Have you got any sort of practices or any sort of mindset techniques that you go through to help you cope with these sort of challenges and hurdles?
Yeah, I think when COVID hit this time, as I mentioned before, I worked in a stockbroking firm. I actually clearly remember both the stock market crashes. And when the first stock market crash hit, I have to say, for me, it was kind of like, holy smokes, the sky is falling.
Mm.
But, when you've been around in business for as long as we have, or you kind of live a life as long as I have, and other people will say this to you too, you know that there are days where the sun shines brightly, and then there are days when there are massive storm clouds. But more than anything else, that storm will pass. And I think that's the bit that people really wanted a timeline, and they were very frustrated. They wanted a deadline. When is this storm going to pass? And what's the weather forecast? And sometimes we don't get the answers to the questions we're asking. And that is very uncomfortable for a lot of people, because they kind of want, they want some clarity. So almost being in this very disrupted world where there was information being thrown at us, constantly. Every hour things would change, and we were trying to grapple with what we were really dealing with. So I think because I've had that experience, especially with stock market crashes and even running businesses, things don't, anybody who tells you it was an easy ride is lying. Like, you really do plan for every day. Something happens, or, at least every week. But it's how you bounce back that's really important. So when COVID first hit, the thing that really, because I work with very large leadership teams around the globe, and the thing that I really wanted to reach out was I heard the tone of voice had changed for a lot of my people, where they were really kind of, people were scared.
Mm.
And I think the thing that, when the brain is panicked, it makes really stupid decisions. And so I started running a series of webinars talking about, you have to really look after yourself before you're capable of looking after other people. And there's a really great book by Kevin Lawrence called Your Oxygen Mask First. And I started working through a lot of teams through that worksheet. And then, bringing the joy back into your life so that you can look after the team around you as well. I look after a lot of CEOs, and my job is to look after the CEO so that we have a ripple effect and look after the whole teams going forward. And I think unless you bring the oxygen mask to yourself, where you bring the joy and the clarity, look, the sun is shining. We still had internet, we still had electricity, we had clear water, sewerage, all the rest of it. At the time, it was devastating,
Yeah.
But you've got to put it in perspective. We still have a functioning country, where we still had a great health service, etc. And I think once kind of the bit of the clarity and the oxygen returns to the brains, people start making sensible decisions. And it's the ones who fail to kind of assess it for the storm that it was, that sometimes made a knee-jerk reaction that I think maybe caused a bit more damage in their teams. Thankfully, all my teams stood firm and held fast. And we talked about, the Stockdale paradox, and I actually spoke about it in a speech yesterday when we had our Christmas party at Icebergs. And so Icebergs are part of my people that I look after, Icebergs restaurant at Bondi. But, I share, the Stockdale paradox, where Jim Collins talks about it, that Admiral Stockdale was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for many, many years. And he shared that, and he was released after many years of torture as well. But he said, look, at the end of the day, I had unwavering faith that we would prevail, but at the same time confronted the brutal facts of my current reality. And he was saying that it was the optimists who probably didn't make it out of the prisoner of war camps, because they just kept setting all these artificial deadlines of, we'll be out by Christmas, we'll be out by Easter, and then Easter would come, and he said that they died from a broken heart. because they had kind of created all these artificial deadlines in their minds of when they'd be released from prison. But he said, I just always had unwavering faith that I would prevail, that we would prevail at the end of it. And I think that's a lot of the thing that, you know, a lot of the work and the coaching that I did over that time was saying, you know, stand firm, hold fast, we will weather the storm. Again, you know your cash flow, which for us is confronting our brutal facts. We have to make some tough decisions, there's no doubt about it. But equally, you know, to the government's credit, you know, coming up with JobKeeper and all that for some businesses. So a lot of my businesses didn't even have a dip in sales. They were in the infrastructure or in that world where infrastructure and in IT, where we've got international markets, and it didn't really dent us. But then there are other companies that did do it a little bit rougher when they had to close for a few months. But knowing your cash flow, again, it comes back to you knowing your cash flow. You'll make better decisions if you have black and white forecasts. And then you can make your choices. Yeah,
for sure. I think that really makes sense. As you wrote that, I put have faith in the future, but confront the now was my little summary with that. And we can't ignore the reality. But at the same time, if you give up hope in the future, then what's the point in getting out of bed, sort of thing?
No, you have to stay true to your goals. You have when you set up your business, you had a dream, you had a wish, and you have to stay very, very true to that goal. Sure, it might not have happened as quickly as you wanted because COVID hit. Nevertheless, we prevail. You know, you will prevail. Just stand. Hold fast. You'll be fine. It'll pass.
Easy. I want to talk about scaling up. You are, I'm going to say, the queen of scaling up because you're because of the award that you won, the only female as well. So as a business, right, we've been through this. I'd say we're still going through this as well on an international level. So this is probably a selfish question. What do we need to be thinking about as we plan to scale, whether that be domestically or internationally?
Oh, customers at the center. You have to design everything to make it easier for your customers to find you and to transact with you. I think there's a lot of theories out there and rah-rah and plenty of books you can read. It goes back to simple value propositions, value kind of simple promises you're making to your favorite customers. And whether they're being in an international market, you're right, there are cultural nuances that change, how some of our people have to transact or, you know, serve our different customers, but yeah.
Customer centric, I love it.
Completely.
Well, what about on the flip side of that then? Because we, post Shark Tank, we arguably scaled too quickly, that our systems and our framework and our support for clients, especially in the digital fashion, which has been super scalable for us. We didn't have the infrastructure and we had to actually rein things in a little bit and slow down. How can you spot when you're going to basically self-sabotage and maybe actually run yourself into the ground by scaling too quickly?
Look, you really need strong metrics to kind of measure on a daily or a weekly basis on, you know, customer happiness and also team happiness. And any kind of metrics that kind of, and they don't need to be massive scoreboards, but you need some critical kind of numbers and KPIs that will give us a balance between people and process. So, you know, team happiness, customer happiness, and then balancing the process and the turnaround times when we service, how we service our people, and where we've got to improve. And you're right in that as you're scaling up, you do, you know, you go from, you know, we talk about the 4 priorities that we've got within a business. You know, you're talking about building a great team. You know, you've got your people question, you've got, you know, your strategy. Have we got the right strategy in place? And then if we do have the right strategy in place, are we executing well? And hopefully if we've got the right people, good strategy, and we're executing well, we'll have lots of cash coming forwards to help us reinvest into the business so we can scale to the next level. But as you're scaling, that's almost like a cycle. So, and I do a lot of quarterly boards and annual planning sessions with people where we know, you know, the focus this quarter has to be people, or it has to be execution. And you know what, we're scaling so well, we've created incredible amount of demand in the marketplace. We need to tweak our systems and our processes in place so it goes into an execution mode. And it might be for a couple of quarters that we have to focus on that.
Would you focus on one of those areas per quarter, or can you do a couple at the same time?
Look, I think at the end of the day, the more you can, the main thing is the main thing is the main thing, as Kobe said, and I'm quoting a lot of people, lots of books. The more you can give the team one priority, one or two priorities as a focus, then the job gets done. The minute we kind of add 5 or 6 priorities or quarterly priorities to the mix, it dilutes the team's efficiency. Because, you know, we need to keep with business as usual as well. So my preference is 1 or 2.
Yep.
Unless we have massive disruptive change that we have to kind of deal with. Sure, but yeah. But the quarterly thing too, like I've got some tech companies that are scaling so fast that the quarter really for them is like a 6-week cycle. They're rapidly growing. So don't look at the timeline as a 12-month or a quarterly thing. It actually, you have to change your cadence and how you respond to the market based on how rapidly you are growing.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Don't think you're stuck into that quarter. It might be 6 weeks for you. It might be a month. It might be 6 months.
Sure.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, have discipline around it and stay on top of the numbers, which will ensure you maintain control.
And you must maintain communication. This is where we're really quite famous for the daily huddles, those stand-ups.
Yes, yeah.
And my companies, the ones that do grow, that have grown really, really well, the ones who run daily huddles properly, and this is the whole meeting rhythm is a whole topic on its own. But the ones who run their daily huddles really, really well, they pulse faster. So the more you communicate as a team, the faster these companies grow. And it was actually, I've got one company that's a publicly listed company, and that we have a team throughout the globe. But my companies that came across who already practiced the daily huddles in a physical sense, when we went to Zoom, we didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
That communication heartbeat, that these guys did not miss a beat, and they weathered the storm really well. So that communication bit and, you know, your daily huddles, your weekly, your monthly, your quarterly cadence that are coming on, and your annual planning is just part of the company's heartbeat.
As one bit of practical advice, because I know it is it's a session in itself, and people should reach out to you and find out the ins and outs of it. Morning meetings, we do them every single day. We have an end of week whip as well, and we have daily feedback emails. So there's lots of communication. What is one fundamental that we need to make sure we either do or don't do? What are people doing wrong in those morning meetings or those huddles?
I think the biggest mistake I find is that people aren't very specific of what they're working on for the day, what their priority is. So it's really clear that everybody comes to the meeting prepared to share what they're working on today to help the business move it forward, and equally what if there is a constraint there that we need to deal with. Because for us in the leadership team, we're looking for the opportunities and for the constraints within the business, and what we can do to help our team succeed, and we need that information being fed up to us so that we can kind of clear the way for the team so that they can do their best work. But unless we have that daily kind of feedback, I do have one company that has a daily huddle 3 times a day.
Yeah, wow.
And these guys are just on top of their game. And
how long are they going for, Anna? Is that just a few minutes?
No, 10, 15 minutes max.
Yeah.
They actually start their huddle at 4 in the afternoon where they prep for the day ahead. And for us as a leadership team, it kind of gives us, if something's going on, then I'll get a call and we'll say, this is what we're dealing with tomorrow. What do you think? And we get different perspective, as opposed to us starting our daily huddle around 7 or 8 in the morning and then the leadership team having till about 11 or 12 o'clock to figure it out. Like the team is already set up for success the next morning. We've had time to think about it overnight.
Yeah, nice.
They have it in the morning and then they have like a check-in around lunchtime. They're short and sharp. Everybody knows the rhythm. But it's just about, you know, reconnecting and then going out into the marketplace a lot stronger, knowing that you're not on your own going into the market, but you're actually going into the market with your whole team behind you.
Yeah, I like that.
Nice. It's really nice.
Yeah, because I guess if you have that afternoon little catch up and that little whip to set up for the next day, you've also given everybody thinking time to maybe address things over the next 12 hours before you come in the morning and go, actually, I thought about that. Maybe we could do this instead.
Yeah, it's very powerful, Ryan.
Yeah.
Really powerful having that huddle in the afternoon, setting up the team for success in the morning.
Beautiful. Okay, all right, last few questions because I've taken up quite a bit of your time.
All right, fire away.
I want to know, what do you love most about business?
Oh, what a cracker of a question. What do I love most about business? For me personally, or just business in general?
Yeah, take it however you want. It's a good.
All right.
You stalled really well for thinking time though.
For me personally, I know it sounds corny, but I think the thing that really drives me is that when there's good people having a go, and then they get the clarity of thought that comes with me actually coaching them, and they kind of have these aha moments that I have this dream, and then they can kind of visualize it at how we're going to make it happen and put like a roadmap together, and with cash flows balancing that kind of clarity and that freedom that allows them to go out and into the market just gives me pure joy. I don't want people to find it a struggle. I really do. I love lightening the load, I guess. There's a burden that comes with running a business, and if I can lighten the load in any way, then that just gives me real purpose. Like that's what I get a kick out of. I really love just helping people just achieve what they want to achieve. And this
in the interactions I've had with you over the last few months or so, since being introduced by Glenn, you can feel that, right? You can sense it. You're somebody that is happy to share information and advice with no prerequisites of anything coming back in return. It's just that I genuinely want to see other people survive and thrive as well at the same time. And you can sense it.
I could go to another level in that. I really believe that for Australian companies, one of the things that I observed in all the work that I've been doing, like I've worked with over 285, probably 290 companies at the moment over the years, is the one thing that frustrated me a lot is that I had a lot of people who were leaning their business, looking at, cutting costs, cheaper, faster, better, how to improve things, and did not pay enough attention on whether their strategy was right. So they were optimizing their execution and their processes irrespective of whether they were in the right strategy, in the right kind of market. So, and then, they'd go to the accountant and they'd say, I'll cut these costs out. And they think that was business advice. And that just does my head in, because you were probably in the wrong market segment to begin with. So if you're not making the kind of right margins that you need to be making, it's almost pointless to look at optimizing execution if you're in the wrong place. So I think a lot of Australian companies have been really working hard because they thought that their strategy was to do things better, faster, cheaper. Whereas strategy, we know, is actually about, strategy comes first. You have to first find the right customers, find the right marketplace where you need to compete, and bring your own unique capabilities. We all have these inherent strengths that we need to bring to the marketplace. And then if your strategy is right, yes, by all means, optimize it. You have a responsibility then to optimize that. Better, faster, cheaper, no doubt about it. Get out there and make a dent in the marketplace. So for me, especially if I'm working with international teams, and my greatest love is actually finding an Australian company that wants to go overseas. Because when we're going into international markets, look, the Australian companies, we are a blue chip. Australia is a blue chip brand in the world. And the more we can kind of get our products and services into an international market, the stronger our economy will be.
Yeah.
And nothing does my head in more than overseas competitors coming into our marketplace and taking the space that entrepreneurs have been working really hard to defend in Australia, only because they weren't focused on the right strategy. and they were saying yes to everyone. They weren't focusing on just one or two of their niches where they really could have dominated and made a global play.
Great advice. I'm going to finish on this last one, but I think you might have just touched into it a little bit. The best and or worst advice you've ever received or heard in business. That can be from a leader, a mentor, a business owner to their team.
Oh, that's a good one. Best advice, I think, is, be true to yourself. The market will actually know whether you are authentic. So, and know that there is space for you in the marketplace. So if you're an entrepreneur with an idea, don't think, be the very best at what you can do, but equally live to your own strengths and to your own truth, and then go out in the marketplace. There will be people who need what you do. Worst advice I've ever received. Give up, you're running out of time. And it's like, shit, yeah, right. It's like game on. You never give up. You fear nothing and no one, and go for it. It's
life is for living, right?
Life is for living. And there's a video that I ran to open up the Sydney Summit in February, which I kind of did an opening video to talk about, scaling up and the methodology and whether it really works, etc. And I actually, at the time, we didn't know COVID was about to hit. And I kind of said, look, fear nothing and no one, and go for it. We live in the most magnificent country in the world. And, and we really have to honour those people who have kind of created this beautiful space for us. And we do have a responsibility. There are many people who wish they were in Australia at the moment with the opportunities we have. And yet we have them. So what are we going to do about it? It is a responsibility. I deem it as a responsibility. We're in this great country. What are we going to do about it? And how are we going to get our goods into the market internationally so that we can have a really good balance of trade? But that's the economist in me going into another world. But, we really need to be financially strong to be able to be secure as a country. So, and it's going to come down to us as entrepreneurs creating lots of jobs and selling into an international marketplace so we can be safe.
Amazing. And so many nuggets of gold in there. I know my videographer, the creative team, are going to have a field day dissecting this and pulling out some little valuable nuggets. Final thing, for anybody that does want to connect with you, maybe look into your services or look at some of the content that you put out there, where can they find you?
I've got my website, so annasamios.com.au. You can go there, or you can connect on me with LinkedIn. And as you know, for anyone who feels that they're stuck or they just want someone to bounce an idea off, please reach out for me. Like, Ryan, I'll just take the call. I don't want anything. I'm just happy to be a sounding board for anyone who really wants to go to the next level and live and bring their business dreams to life. Just reach out to me. I'm here for everyone, as I always have been. So yeah. I've been blessed in life, so I have to pay it forward.
Love it. I love your attitude, and we can learn a lot from that just in general. So thank you very much, guys and girls that were listening. That was Anna Samios, and we hope you enjoyed that episode. We'll be back very, very soon with another episode on The Swish Show. We'll see you soon.